Welcome to Electric Lawn Talk. Each week, the electric lawn care professionals get together to talk about the electric lawn and landscape business and have some fun along the way. Whether you are in the business, thinking of getting started, or just want to hear the tips, tricks, struggles, and victories of the move to electric, you are in the right place. Let's get started.
Got an informal group this evening. Got Dan Cienfuegos with Electron. Got Gerhardt with Sustainable Land Solutions, and Mr. Michael Reed with Quiet Lawn. Myself, Stephen, with EcoMo here in Dallas. So as we were all kind of chatting here before we got rolling, I just happened to bounce over. We've been talking about robot mowers here for a little bit and looking at some of this new RTK technology, real-time kinematic, I believe is what it's referred to. And it's really cool technology because these robots now can dial in. First of all, there's no need for a guide wire anymore. So that was kind of one of the big issues with going the robot route was, I want to use a robot, but I don't want to put guide wires up, Well, here we are. We've got the technology, this RTK technology. They're able to dial these robots in for, like accuracy within centimeters. I know they said it was 2 to 5 meters under old technology. But with RTK, they're dialing this thing in to within centimeters of accuracy. You're walking around with this tool or even your smartphone, programming the route, and then you're releasing the robot and it's going out and it's doing the work. Pretty fascinating stuff. So as we were chatting, I just happened to look at the Kress website right quick, and they've got a whole slew of robotic RTK mowers that they have, ranging all the way from like a quarter acre up to, if you guys won't even believe it, take a look at their website. They have the Mission Mega RTK. This is the KR236 model, and the maximum lawn size, this thing will cut up to 9 acres. 9 acres. Now, is that on a single charge? I have no idea. All I know is that's a lot. So it sounds to me like that's like some big commercial solution. Mr. Reed, I know you've got a little bit of intel on the robotic side. I know you guys have been dabbling in it for a while. I think you're starting to take things more seriously now that we've got RTK technology. What's your take on robot mowers? We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, Stephen, thanks for having me on. Robotic mowers is something we've played with for the last probably 3 seasons, and there are still several hurdles to overcome before I think it's really viable for our type of business. One of the biggest hurdles, which is getting rid of this wire, RTK solves. One of the big challenges with robotic mowers, or as a service, the way it is right now, is that the installation is so expensive and time consuming. And for that reason, you need to lock your customer into a long contract to be able to recoup your money, because it might take several hours and a couple $100 worth of materials or maybe more to install a boundary wire on a robotic mower. And it's not like you can get people signing up and then canceling in a month because they don't like the service. You basically need to sell people on, like 3-year contracts. So getting rid of the wire is a huge hurdle. There are still other hurdles, but it's definitely one step closer to making this a viable option for businesses like ours to make money.
So do you think, in your opinion, that you can build a business around robotic mowers? And the reason I say that, is it possible that a business owner who is an entrepreneur, one-man show, can you have a fleet of robot mowers? And I kind of picture this as, I've got a truck or I've got a van, I've got 5 robot mowers in this van. Is it feasible that I can program these properties and as a business owner go out and say, drop the mower off in the morning and then it cuts the grass, and then I come back later and string trim and blow the property and then put the robot back in the truck and then take the mower home? Can you run a business like that?
Well, and I've thought about every scenario and possibility. That's one of them. Kind of a drop and go option and stuff like that. The One of the other big hurdles I see as far as scaling a very large business, and why you've seen companies like Robin Autopilot and Mobot and things like that kind of go under or get out of that business model, is because it's just very expensive to scale and it requires so much capital because you're having to devote a several $1,000 robotic mower to each property. One of the things that I'm waiting on is for these larger RTK robotic mowers for them to get larger to where you can actually take them with your crew, and it would be just our the business model we've kind of been building our business towards anyways. We pull up in our Prius, the mower jumps out, it's already remembered the property, all the properties are stored in the mower, and the mower does the mowing and our guy does the string trimming, edging and blowing, and they finish at the same time. So that's kind of what I see this going towards in the next couple of years, and that's kind of the route that I think is going to be most appealing to us as business owners.
And in my inexperience here, I obviously need to learn more. But when you drop a mower off at a property, and then you've got one guy that's out there doing the string trimmer, you mentioned that the mower finishes at the same time as the guy, as the man that might be out there working. Does it really happen that fast?
Well, not with the existing mowers. Yeah, we're not talking about the mowers that you saw at GIE that are meant to stay on a property and they maintain that property and they're there 24 hours a day. We're talking about basically turning your 30-inch mower that we're all looking for into an RTK robotic mower. It's got regular blades. It mows at the speed of a person, 3 to 5 miles an hour, and it mows the property while your other crew member does the rest of the service. So that stuff is what I think is coming in the next 1 to 2 years, and I think it'll take a while before it gets really honed in. But that's the step I'm waiting on, and that's what we're kind of gambling on with our business model is for that to happen, because that's going to solve a lot of problems, and that's going to take a service that is uh, relatively low margin, and it's going to really increase that margin and take a lot of dependence on labor away from that. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for. The existing model out there now, where you have to put a robotic mower on each property, it's very tough. I think it's very tough to grow a sizable business that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess because the smaller units that we see, these smaller autonomous units, they're kind of having to live at the property where they're working. Is that right? I mean, you can't have 6 or 7 of these units in your van and then drop them off in the morning and then deploy them and go pick them up at the end of the day. Do you feel like that's a viable business model in your opinion?
And you've got so much time and travel and going back and forth to the property. It's really doesn't make a lot of sense to have to go back to the property and service. Do the rest of the service. And I've looked at ways you could do that. There's other. I'm always imagining ways that could work. I can imagine, a drone. These cargo drones dropping mowers off at properties. I could see that something that Amazon might do at some point, because these things only weigh 25 or 30 pounds, and those drones can carry 50 pounds. So, the only way I could see like a drop and go type of service with these robotic mowers really being very profitable would be something like that. But the existing model now is just to put a mower on each property, and if you're just taking care of 100 properties, which is just a one man operation, you could do that with $10,000 or $15,000 worth of equipment. But if you're going to put robotic mowers on that property, now you need probably 300,000, just for those. And imagine that with 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 customers.
Yeah.
That's why scaling that model is very tough, and why you've seen, the companies that try to do it have really, they've pretty much gone under or changed their business model, because you're putting so much capital out up front, but it takes you years to start getting your money back.
Yeah, and so I'm still looking at the Kress models here. They're really cool looking machines. I know that Husqvarna's been out with some machines I think they were kind of one of the front runners in the game. What robot mowers have you guys checked out, and give us some feedback on on how it's worked out for you?
We've used primarily Husqvarna and Kress mowers. We've been fortunate to be able to use some of their wired models over the last couple of years, and they've been really good. We've used a cheaper brand I think called Moro, I believe, but we didn't have a lot of success with our grass types. But Husqvarna has some good features. Kress is a little, the ones that we used were a little bit more advanced. But that's pretty much the extent of ours is using Kress or Husqvarna.
So I buy myself one of these autonomous mowers. I'm looking at which is perfect for my property. It's the Mission RTKN 3/4 acre, the KR172 model. I've got this RTK unit. I buy it. I bring it home. I want to get this thing set up. How do you do it? There's no wires. How does the setup work? How long does it take?
Yeah, so from what I understand, it should, for a smaller property like that, you should be in and out in 30 minutes. And what you have is basically a measuring wheel that you put the RTK sensor on, and you walk your property, and you can, it's basically just drawing. You've got an app, and your phone's on the measuring wheel, and you've got the app, and you basically draw out the boundary of your property. You can also, this is something that's really cool. That's a challenge with the wires too. You can have different zones, and you can draw like imaginary bridges. So, say for example, you have an isolated area that's not connected, like across a driveway. You can draw a bridge, and it will go across that bridge to access the other areas. But you basically map out your property with that measuring wheel type device, and then you just pop the RTK sensor onto the mower, and it does its thing.
Super cool. I love it. The technology's come so far in the past few years, and it's great to see, because that's always been kind of the sticking point with me is the wires, and now we don't have the wires. So, we're stepping into new boundaries here, and man, it's super exciting stuff. I mean, any of the rest of you guys, Dan, have you ever used any of these robot mowers?
I have not, but I have used very similar technology that's probably a little bit more advanced than what we have in the lawn care business. So if you have some time, look up a company called MIR, MIR robots, autonomous robots. So I've worked with this company before in my past history, and these robots or autonomous vehicles, they're warehouse or material handlers. So what they do is you set it up in your warehouse, and they'll go to a place, pick up a material, and bring it back to a station or workstation for a product to make a product, right? Or to a station to create a product. And what you had before is a person would have to travel to each station and give a person another part. So what they did is they come up with this machine where it pretty much travels the warehouse. All you do on this machine, you take your iPad and then you walk the warehouse. You show it the four corners of the warehouse. And the machine has a 3D software or a 3D scanner inside the machine. And it kind of looks at the environment and decides on where to go based off what it sees. So it'll come into the warehouse where you showed it. You walk it around the property or walk it around the warehouse, the four corners. It starts to see, okay, there's a rack here. You can put there. That's a little drop-off location or whatever. And you teach this thing around your warehouse, and then you let it go free. Comes over, an operator puts a part on it, hits a button on it, and then moves on to his next station. And it moves all around the warehouse. This machine probably costs $40,000 to $50,000 for the smaller models. You can also put a trailer on it where you can, hook up to trailers and carry it back, forth to other stations. I worked with that kind of technology, and I think that kind of technology needs to come to the lawn care business, where an employee will cost a company $20,000 to $50,000 or $30,000 to $50,000 a year. If you have this machine that can come in and kind of take care of that, you can be running a 2-man crew with a 1 man. And what you do is you have this machine when you guys do an estimate, you come out, you estimate the yard. You can either walk the machine, a dummy machine, or you can walk your iPad around the property, measure it out, upload it to a cloud. When the machine gets there, it already picks that data up from the cloud. You drop it off with your one-man crew. The mower starts to mow because it knows the property. It's not going to change based off of that. Kind of knows the four corners of it, knows what it needs to be mowing from the estimate. And then it goes into and does a mowing job just like you would on a 30-inch or 28-inch or whatever push mower you use now. And then it'll get done. Your guy's finishing up blowing and stuff. It comes up to the trailer, gets in the trailer, goes into the charging dock, and that's what it should be doing, right? That's the ideal world. And this is exactly what MIR or the MRR machines do for automation, as in warehouse automation. And a lot of the times you look at the cost analysis, they pay themselves out in 1 year. If you have a warehouse worker running back and forth doing the same job, the machine will take care of itself and your payback is in a year. Obviously, this is a very expensive piece of machine. It's made for warehouses. It has sensors where you come up to it. So the coolest thing was when we got the demo of this machine, we worked with it. You can go up to it, stop in front of it. It'll sit there and look at you, and then it'll turn around and go a different route, right?
That was going to be my question is, will it run you over?
No, it will not. Actually, it comes up, it stops, it beeps at you a couple times. If you don't move, it'll actually find a different alternative route based off of what it knows from the environment. Because you remember, you taught the environment to it. So once you taught the environment, it starts to look for other outcomes. So it starts to predict, this is, a little bit higher up than your, RTK, I guess. I'm not sure what they're using now, but it pretty much just detects it and says, okay, there's somebody in front of me or there's an obstacle and it won't move in the next 5 seconds, right? All right, I'm going to move. I'm going to back out and come around. It's the same thing if it comes up to a ball, right, in the middle of a field, in the backyard, somebody left the ball. It's going to look at it and it says, okay, I can't move that. I'm going to turn around and mow around it, and then move on. That's the ideal world, right? You want to come in, sees an obstacle, mows around the obstacle, and moves on, and without any hiccups, without anything, unless it gets stuck or something. Obviously, you need help for that, but that's what I've seen.
Got it. So then, primarily this is built for just materials management, right? Moving materials from A to B. It could be used in like an assembly line process.
Yeah.
In a warehouse for moving pallets from one location to the other, kind of to staging areas.
Yeah, it can also be used as a forklift. There's actually Toyota makes it where they make automatic forklifts where same technology, they'll come up in a warehouse. You tell it, hey, you have a storage, obviously you have all this data stored somewhere. It says, hey, I need a bin from 12A, just like a vending machine. That forklift is going to just roam over to it, come up, pick it up, take it down, and take it wherever it needs to. That's where the technology is in the, high intense work fields where you're having, thousands of parts being made or millions of parts being made, in a day or, over the month. It's high production volumes. They got the capital to kind of spend money on, robots like this or autonomous vehicles like this because it pays for itself. The companies, corporations like this are spending 50 to or anywhere between, 50 to like 60 grand with the payroll taxes on a person. And then they got call out sick for 2 weeks, right? Or they got, vacation time and all this adds up. So when you go you present your CER or, your capital expenditure report to your management, it's a little easier to just say, hey, this is going to pay itself out in a year. And after that, it'll, make its money every single year after that. And that's what I've seen. And I think the robotic mowers are going to transition to that slowly as the cost of technology comes down. The more the scanners come down, as the 3D scanners that scanning the fields, depth lasers, right? IR lasers and stuff like that. That's reading distance, getting that feedback to it, communicating with 4G or 5G, and being able to communicate with satellites and actually seeing the property visually itself and then communicating based off of a rectangle that you created or a 4-wall thing you created when you're at the property doing estimates.
How cool. I'm looking at some of these units now, mobile industrial robots, MIR, and I'm looking at the MIR 250. How cool would it be for us in landscaping and in lawn care? If I had one of these things with some big tires on it, and that way you could throw a pallet of grass on it and bring it around the back of the house for you, so you wouldn't have to, go out to the truck and wheel that pallet of grass back, or even a load of gravel. Right, when you're doing a hardscape install, it's a big time manual process when we're pulling a dumper up, we're offloading with shovels into wheelbarrows. Our gravel, how cool would that be to load that into one of these MIR 250s into a Mir 250 and then just have it carry it out to the work site for us? Man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool technology. They're actually a sister company of theirs is UR Robots. So if you ever look up them, they're the arm that 6-7 axis robots arms, $30,000 robot, where I think it might be 40,000 now. But that is being used to make coffees. Like people are using it to make coffees. Pizza companies are starting to use them to make pizzas. You're starting to see them. I think Chipotle is trying to make a machine that makes the French fry or the chips, because nobody wants to make the chips because I guess they get burned or something. So you're seeing companies invest money on a robot, a 6-axis robot, that's pretty much doing the same thing as manual labor does, right?
Yeah.
So the technology is there. How fast is it going to come to the industry where you're a little bit more, how do we say that? Like a little bit more, they don't like change as much.
Mm-hmm.
I think from an outsider coming into the landscape business, it seems like a lot of people are hesitant to change. Electric mowers or a little automation of this, automation of that. It seems like that. I mean, you guys can probably speak to it more since you've been in the field longer than I have, but it just seems like it's a little bit more, hesitant to change to new technology and test out new technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural. I mean, it's human nature to feel threatened by robots, right? I mean, the concern is, oh my gosh, we create all these robots. I mean, are we still going to have a job? And yes, the real answer is yes, we will. There's jobs that are created for people to program these things.
Exactly.
There's tons of
maintenance, programming. There's actually, to me, I think you have a higher skill labor than lower skill labor, I guess you can kind of call it. So, I like automation. I'm all for it. I'm very pro automation, pro making it easier for the people. And if you can have a job where you can pay somebody $30 an hour to fix the robot versus $10 an hour to go mow a yard, I think it's better to have a $30 an hour job than a $10 an hour job. That's my 2 cents. That's just the what I see it.
Yeah, no, that's great input. And it adds to what Michael was saying. I mean, it's just a higher level of productivity. And I mean, advancements in technology are happening. Now, Jamar, I think you're with us. How many robots do you guys have on your crew, and what are your thoughts on this, man? Give us some golden nuggets here.
No, I didn't mic check it, but yeah, I'm over here listening. But no, we don't have any robots. I'm the only robot in our crew. So we just got
that's funny.
We just got some backup batteries. We very much like Michael, I saw it early on that robotics and technology is going to be one of those things that changes the game for us. We look at it as we look at a few things. We look at technology. We look at the world of organics, the philosophy of sustainability. We think all those things are going to become mainstream, and quite frankly, we are excited to help it go mainstream in our area. But we know that the act of mowing at some point will be diminished significantly. The part that won't necessarily be diminished will be the people side of things, right? The connecting with folks, the pruning, the shrubbery, the stuff that's in the garden that needs to be, tended to by a gardener, right? And so our training is based on that. Well, first we got to make sure that the mowing does look good, because we do a lot of mowing. right? You got to be able to do that. But our differentiator is doing the shrub maintenance, the flower maintenance, making the other stuff look really good. And we're looking to train and hire people. And I tell all my guys, if you come in, you're not just going to be a mow guy, right? If all you want to do is mow, you'll have to go somewhere else, because we're going to do a little bit of everything, because I do see it that way. And I've told my guys, like, look, one day a robot mower will replace you. I don't know what day that will be, but we're going to be ready for it. We're going to be prepared for it for when that day comes. So no robots right now, other than, like I said, myself, the phones that's in our pockets, the software that we use. That's about as far as we go with the robotics right now. It's just right now, I don't see any way for me to make any sense out of spending that much money for these little robots with the technology that exists today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting here in the next, year to 2 years as the cost continues to go down. Obviously, these things are becoming more affordable. And, it's just like flat screen televisions, right? I mean, you'd have to pay $2,000, $3,000 for a 65-inch flat screen television. And just as soon as the new model, right, the new OLED models came out, the higher end, you could buy a 65-inch television now for like $400 at Costco. So a lot of people are going to have the opportunity now to get into this game and buy a robotic mower for a lot less cost than what they were even a year ago. So the cost is coming down. I mean, these products are coming out. People are going to start buying these mowers. I mean, it's inevitable. The technology is finding its way here. The big question is, are we going to embrace it as an industry? And I know that with every one of us, I mean, this is electric lawn talk, right? So we've focused our business on being on the cutting edge of technology and trying out new technologies and things like that. And it seems to me like the move to robotics is probably the next step.
I think we know that for sure.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's, I don't think it's a maybe. I think we know that for sure. And the other challenge that we're going to have is, if you thought that the chuck in the truck or the $20 lawn guy was your competition, just wait till consumers can get their hands on one of these things for $800, right?
And they can.
And that's the thing you're going to have to do. So if they can do that for $800, where do you differentiate yourself? Where do you fit in the market? What value do you add? Right. I personally do not think that it will replace this industry, obviously, what we do, because we can look at, like, say, the cleaning industry. I mean, people got Roombas and Dysons and everything, but they still have a cleaning lady that comes to their house, right?
Yeah.
So there's some luxuries that people will have, but there's also a lot of things that we will continue to need that human touch, and we just got to make sure that we line ourselves up with that, capitalize off the robotics, use them as much as we possibly can, but keep your ears to the street and what's happening in the industry. Always be ready to adapt, and just know that robotics are coming. Competition is going to come. But if you really set yourself apart, you realize that there is no competition. It's just a lot of people who are more affluent now than ever have the ability to hire people to come do things for them. And then the younger and younger generations that are coming behind everybody, they just don't know how to do anything. So, so they're used to pushing a button and having somebody come and take care of stuff for them. So there's opportunity here. It's not, we don't want to cry wolf. But there's a ton of opportunity. You just got to see it and then capitalize on it and get yourself prepared for it. But it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, I mean, is it only a matter of time before we start getting a phone call from a potential client that says, hey, I really just need you to come out and do the edging and the string trimming and the blowing because I've already got a robot mower. So do you think you guys can come out and do that for a lesser cost? I mean, do you guys think that that's a real thing? I mean, Gerhard, what are your thoughts?
I think it's coming for sure. And I want to add that I've seen some other type of robots technology come into the industry as well. I don't know if you guys have seen, but I've seen robot weeders in, like vegetable gardens. which that I think is a little bit more known compared to the second one that I've seen. I've seen a robot hedger, a machine. It's like a gigantic rectangular prism, roll up to a hedge. It has all kinds of saw blades, rotates around this thing, hedges it up, rolls right over to the next one, hedges it up, right, and it just goes down the line, and it blew my mind. And I'm telling you, if you roll up to a property with a van, and you and a bunch of robots get out, and you just take care of the little minor things, trimming, blowing, and you have a robot weeding, you have a robot hedging, a robot mowing the lawn, that's insane. Now, I also want to talk like, you're not replacing jobs, you're adding jobs. Only one person can only do so much. Say you had one person trying to do all that work, and it takes 4 times as long. Well, guess what? Now one person can service 4 times as many properties. So that way the company can, essentially pay that person more and make it a more enjoyable lifestyle choice to be in this industry, because it is hard work. And, we want to be treating our employees right. I've seen people kick back on like, oh, robots are going to take us out, our jobs out. But the reality is that they're going to give us more jobs, more productivity, more chance to treat the people who are willing to do the work better.
Yeah. So Michael Reed, I want to circle back around to that question. You get a phone call from a potential client that says, I need you to come out and do the string trimming and the blowing, and I've already got a robot mower to mow the lawn for me, and they're expecting a lower price. How do you handle it?
Yeah, we already offer that. So that's kind of what we build our robotic service around, is being able to sell other higher margin services, because with the current model of putting a robotic mower on each property, there's still not, there's still no margin in that service. So, our whole thing was, sell the robotic mower, or have people that are, be able to lease it or sell it, and then be able to sell the services around it, the string trim and edging, all of our other services, treating lawns and stuff like that. So that's something we currently offer. Kind of the challenge with that is that it's not much cheaper to just go do the string trim and edging and blowing than it is to do the whole service. So, whereas people might expect, if they're paying $50 to have their lawn mowed, you're still going to have to charge 35 or, something like that to go by and do the string trimming and edging, because you've still got the same cost as far as travel time and those other parts. So we got creative and used things like plant growth regulators to reduce the frequency of those visits, and we had moderate success with it, but it wasn't the way I wanted it to be. But yeah, I think that's the whole thing, is being able to sell other services around it, because realistically, there is the threat that down the road that there's going to be something that's going to come along and wipe out our ability to make money mowing. Amazon dropping off robotic mowers for $10 a week with a drone or something, or there's stuff. There's a very real threat. Or like you said, the people can get online and buy a robotic mower for $300. There is a very real threat, down the road, 10 plus years that could come along. And it's, I'm building my business around the other stuff, as well.
Yeah, I guess, and in embracing the technology. And I guess it only makes sense that, we obviously know that this is a direction that we're all going. So the quicker we can get out in front of that and become, I guess, to a certain degree, the subject matter expert, where you have the knowledge on all of the different units. I'm not saying you're going and you're selling the units for these particular providers, but as the technology continues to advance, particularly with this RTK technology, and the cost continuing to go down, we can look at this as a business opportunity for ourselves and say, okay, we know this is where the business is headed. I want to get out in front of this thing. I want to learn as much as I can about robotic mowers. So that way, when I'm consulting with a client or a potential client that says, hey, I want to use a robot mower, I've got the intelligence then, and I can now say, all right, this is the unit that we want to use. This is how it works. We can be the facilitator that can set the unit up. We can program the unit. We can service the unit, send it in for, warranty issues, things like that. So I guess ultimately it only makes sense that we embrace the technology, because clearly it's not going away, so it's like our transition from electric or from gas to electric, right? You've got a lot of people that are they're fighting it, and it's a reality. I mean, you guys saw it. I think I shared it with you all today on Discord, and I don't know if it was yesterday or in the last few days. Honda has just announced that they're no longer going to be making gas mowers anymore, right? And I think that it's only a matter of time before everybody else, right, follows suit. And I mean, obviously there's some large scale machines that are going to need to continue to run on gas power. But when we're talking about the residential properties, let's be real. Battery technology is advanced far enough now to where it can be done with battery technology. But just seeing the advancement of the robots, particularly over the last year. I mean, there was this period of time where the robots came out and there wasn't a whole lot of movement with them. I saw, here in Dallas, I think we had Robin Autopilot. I don't even know if they're still in business anymore. Maybe they are. I think they might now be Mobot or somebody like that. And they kind of went stagnant for a while where there wasn't a whole lot going on in that industry. And then all of a sudden, like in the last year, there's just been this huge boom back to the robot mowers. Here we are. It's fascinating technology. And I know that Dan's a techie guy, so he's probably all over the robot scene. Dan, when you buy a robot mower and it's a 3/4 acre robot mower, in your expertise, how long will that mower run on average, and how long does it take to cut your lawn?
Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't used any, obviously, just because of the costs and I haven't really gone into and getting into depth about them. I do love technology, and I look at them all the time, look at their, what they're using. A couple of things I don't like about the current robotic mowers is that they're still using a thinner blade, just to be, like a razor, kind of like a razor to use to cut grass. It's a little weird circle instead of a traditional blade. That's just might be just because of, hey, I'm hesitant to that change. I'm so used to seeing a blade moving, but it could be just because of you can get away with less torque needed to move that smaller blade. So if you're moving a blade with an angle on it, which you have for your mowing, for your mulching blades or high lift blades, it takes a lot more energy to move that. And the longer the blade is, the more energy you'll need to kind of move that around. So I can see why these robotic mowers use like a razor blade instead, because that's an easier movement, and you can use that to run all day, or longer run times on a smaller battery. For instance, higher RPMs, smaller battery, lower torque needed. But I would just say, hey, if it's the 21 inch, it should be able to mow it just as fast as someone else push mower, if not faster, because it should already know how to turn before it gets there. It should already know the fastest route based off the surface area and what you taught it. To me, it should be more efficient than a human. That's my opinion. Because if it knows, and it knows exactly, okay, it needs to be 1 inch, to the left, or the wheels are this way. Because sometimes when a person mows, they might be overlapping a little bit more than they didn't realize it, or the grass didn't grow that much and they're running through there. You're double cutting the same area because you're trying to turn, and you're turning it wrong because you're trying to get between the fence and trying to turn that, push mower around, and you're hitting the fence. and then you're like trying to turn it. That should all be taken care of with the robotic mower, and it should be at least 10% faster than the human. I don't know. Maybe Michael knows a little bit more than I do, but it should be faster when it hits those turns than a human can, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that the older autonomous mowers would like mow in random directions, right? So they would just go all over the place, right? And then it would take hours, from what I understand. This is technology from 2 years ago, and I've got a lot to learn. So now I understand the new autonomous mowers are actually mowing in rows. Does anybody have any insight or intel on that, Michael Reed?
Yeah, so I guess with existing technology before RTK, well, they still had this with some others. They still had that advancement with some other technologies like the EPOS or whatever. But yeah, basically the older robotic mowers just stay within the boundary wire and they just bounce back and forth until they calculate that will cover the whole area. And they didn't really, there was no rhyme or reason to the how they bounce around. With the RTK and the other similar technologies, last couple of years, they can mow a lot more efficiently because they stripe out the lawn like we would. So there's no wasted motion of it running over the same spot 400 times a day to catch one little piece that it missed. So you will get faster with that. But to answer your question, for a 3/4 acre property, the current robotic mowers are really maintainers. They're meant to be left on properties, and they can take 6, 8, 10, 12 hours to mow your lawn, of straight mowing. So they're not designed to go in and mow a property in 10 or 15 minutes like you would with a mowing crew or with a large mower. And that's kind of the way all of them work now is they just maintain and they mow the property several times a week, and they do a very good job at it. The cut is very clean. They cut with a razor blade, which is, the closest quality cut to like a real mower, REEL, not, to a real mower that you're going to get. But like I said, it's just not really scalable for our business. The big key thing that I think is going to happen and has to happen is when they, apply that technology to, like your Ego 21-inch mower, and it's basically, just an RTK mower with the same battery system, the same blade and everything else, and it can mow in real time. And as far as speed, I would assume that it would be close to as efficient as a person. I would bet there would be a lot of regulation as far as the speed due to liability. I would guess this thing wouldn't go over like 3 miles an hour, for just because there is the liability of this thing, this killing machine, unmanned killing machine going crazy and doing something. So I'm guessing they're not going to have it, going out there and 12, 15 miles an hour mowing a property. But it would be a significant reduction in labor, and also much more dependable. And it's going to happen. And like Dan said, it's going to be out of necessity because our labor force is fundamentally changed, and it's probably not ever going to go back to the way it was. So companies are having to innovate and put money into this technology now just out of necessity. So I'm excited. I think, like I said, the wire, getting rid of the wire was one big hurdle, but we still need to, get rid of the hurdle that you have to put a robotic mower on each property. That's the next thing that needs to get out of the way for us to be able to pursue it as a viable, profitable business that's scalable. And I think that's already in the works, and I think you'll start to see that in the next 1 to 2 years. What I'm not a big fan of is these companies that are making, like Greensy and stuff like that. It's cool technology, but they're turning full size mowers, 1,000-pound mowers into autonomous mowers. I don't think that would be good. At least, it's good for commercial, but at least for our residential business model with smaller properties, I think it would be much more enticing to have multiple small, lightweight, 20, one 30 or 30-inch mowers that work together as a team, where you can kind of scale it up and add more mowers as you need them based on the size properties that you service. Just due to the weight and the liability, I think that's probably the better way to go, than just basically automating a zero turn or a stand on mower.
Dan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, you bring up a good point because you're in other people's properties, right? These warehouse robots that I normally work with or seen work on, they're on private properties, right? So they're on a property that you pretty much own the property. You own what's going on inside of it. You don't really have regulation. So I'm assuming, we'll see what anybody will say. Just like you have Tesla with their autopilot or FSD, where they're trying to roll that out, and it's been a little iffy because of regulations on there. It's trying to say, hey, can you really have an unmanned vehicle, driving around, the city, but you already see it there. I think technology is going to move very quickly. You're seeing Tesla do it with a $12,000 computer with cameras to do city driving, which to me is a little bit more complicated than seeing a fence and mowing back and forth. But there is some liabilities to that, to having that, like rocks, shoot. I would assume you have more of a mulching system instead of an open shoot where you're shooting something where you can have a rock shootout from your robot. It has to be maybe closed in where it's not shooting stuff out. I think it's sensors where it's reading distance from people with LiDAR or either cameras or something that's telling that hey, there's somebody near. Hard stops where it sees something like a moving object, say, okay, I need to stop the mower, check it, text you or email you or tell you or alarm. You go and say everything's okay and you move on. Right? I think there's some things that technology that needs to catch up that I think it's still a little bit expensive. I mean, I don't know what you guys are willing to pay for a robot that replaces a 50% of a person, but I mean, that's going to be up to each company to come up and determine if it's $5,000, $20,000, $30,000 mower that does half of what one person does for the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. But that's going to be, depending on companies. Since the technology is not there, like Michael said, these other mowers that are going maybe probably close to $100,000, that fully autonomous big mowers, 30 or 60-inch mowers. I think it's good for cities, maybe highway cutting. Like you do that in the cornfields already, but you have a person in it, right? You have when you do agriculture, all these John Deeres are on GPS signals, rolling back and forth, but you have a person inside of it that's controlling it turns, or hey, if something goes wrong, they see something, they can stop it. That's something maybe that needs to be added to the bigger mowers where you have a one person running 10 big mowers at a municipality or big city block where they can have 10 screens on their desk and they're running all the screens and they can kind of see what everything's going on. Who knows? We'll see the technology move forward, kind of like what you have with Tesla, where you can the computer sees everything. You as a driver can dictate on if you need to step in or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at as we were talking. I was talking about Robin Autopilot. I guess Mobot must have bought them or whatever, and I think they're all powered. It says powered by Husqvarna, so I guess that Mobot is exclusively using Husqvarna. And on their website, it says on the installation that Mobot installs a guide wire around the yard. So anyone have any intel and we obviously need to have somebody from the robot industry come on the show. Clearly that's what we need to do. I know we've had a couple people reach out to us, and we're going to contact you. We're going to get you on the show. But I'm wondering is the website outdated, or does Husqvarna have an RTK unit? Does anybody know?
I don't know if they have the an RTK unit. I'm sure they're working on it. They have, I think it's called the EPOS, and they have other systems where you have to put out sensors, and they're kind of made more for wide open spaces like ball fields and stuff like that because they don't do well with like trees and houses and stuff like that in the way. But I'm sure they're working on it. As far as Mobot, I think they've pretty much, Husqvarna was a part owner in Mobot, and I think they've kind of gone under. They were bought out by Robin Autopilot. We actually bought out the local Mobot. And then Robin Autopilot, I think they went from, the selling robotic mowers to selling to service providers to sell robotic mowers. They kind of got out of that business model because of like I said, the capital and scaling issues. And, then now they're trying to sell that business model to you and I and landscapers, and that's kind of what their business model is now. But yeah, I'm sure Husqvarna's the biggest player in the game. I'm sure they are very much aware of RTK.
Yeah. Well, I know that Husqvarna is the one that had one of their units was on that Black Friday sale. I think it was like $699, where normal it was like 50% off the Husqvarna unit. I'm curious how many people actually bought one of those. Pretty cool. It's funny that when I'm reading a website here, the people that handle the Mobots, whenever they come out and pick them up and set them up, they call them the Mobot Wranglers.
So I have already looked into it as far as being in PA, and my insurance company will not cover anything robot-wise yet. So as far as things that we need as an industry that need to come about, we need legislation to pass for us to actually be able to use these things. As far as all of the safety goes, like Michael said, a killing machine, things that literally have blades on them, razor blades, cutting autonomously. So I mean, I've looked into it, and I'm all for it. I think that we're all very technology focused, and I'm excited for it. Especially living in an area where the name Marsh, Marsh is in the name of one of the towns I operate in, and you can't put a heavy mower on some of these properties. So a small, lightweight that doesn't even need a person, man weight behind it to mow, I think that's revolutionary, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see where the industry goes. And we're absolutely going to have somebody on the show with us that is an expert in the autonomous systems. Pretty cool stuff, guys. Appreciate your time tonight. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Electric Lawn Talk. Don't miss the next episode. Be sure to subscribe, and while you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review.